He was born a snake handler, and he'll die a snake handler. You're listening to Game Points with Matthew Ross on TSN 690.
.35 on TSN 690. It is Game Points. I am your host, Matthew Ross. We're here till 8 o'clock tonight. Mo Khan is here in studio as well as David Trentadue. Jimmy G is on the board. Raceline Radio coming up at 8 o'clock with Eric Thomas. Still to come here on this program, Matt Cause of TSN 1050 for Blue Jays and Raptors talk just after 7, and then some fantasy baseball chat with Jeff Erickson of RotoWire.com. We're keeping an eye on the college basketball game between Syracuse and Virginia. Also, Mo Khan is monitoring the NCAA West Regional Final for the Frozen Four.
Ferris State against Denver University.
Yes. We'll keep you abreast, as they say. It is 3-2 right now for Denver over Ferris State. But right now, we're pleased to talk a little football here with our next guest. He was a rookie this past season in the NFL as tight end with the Denver Broncos and finished the season with the Green Bay Packers. You can follow him on twitter.com/MitchHenry85. It is Mitch Henry. Hey, Mitch, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being on the program. First of all, congratulations on a successful first year in the NFL. And obviously, when a team reacquires you, of course, Green Bay signing you, you going to Denver, they getting you back. It must feel pretty good heading into your next season.
Yeah, it's definitely feeling good. This was my first season, and, it's hectic going from Green Bay to Denver back to Green Bay. And, just kind of finally glad just to kind of settle down and, stay in one place for a little bit. And, spring ball comes up April 18th, and, can't wait to get started with that.
Now, in terms of your experience with Denver, you actually suited up for 3 games for the Broncos. Obviously, they go on, they win the Super Bowl. Did you know that it was going to be a special season for them at that point? Did you have an inkling, or was this something that kind of just snowballed later in the year, do you think?
Even when I was at Green Bay earlier in the year, I thought, Green Bay had a good chance. And, then when I was with Denver, I thought Denver had a good chance. And, both of these organizations are, high tout organizations and, really know what they're doing. And, when I was in both places, I kind of felt like, either team has a shot to win the Super Bowl. And, it just happened to be them. And, they happened to have that, great team this year. And, Packers kind of struggle with some injuries and up and down, but, I think we have a good shot next year and, like where I'm at. But the whole time I was in Denver, I knew there was a possibility, but, still proud of them and glad to be in Green Bay.
Now, last time we spoke, you weren't sure that if there was a possibility. Is there a chance you get a ring from the Broncos?
Still not sure yet. Still waiting on it. They get the side and stuff, so still going through all that process, but hope so.
Mitch, should I make you my dark horse in my fantasy football draft come September?
Yeah, I'd definitely be a dark horse. So you get extra points for underdogs
potentially here. But looking at your role now for the Packers moving ahead here, has Coach McCarthy or anyone from the staff told you what they expect from you come spring camp, then of course in training camp in August?
Really just, expecting to come in there and, do what I did last year. And, I came in there spring and, really put my name out there and did really well and ended up, unfortunately, getting injured, breaking my hand and had to wear a cast through preseason. And, which that was a big setback last year. So, really just coming there and doing what I did last year, putting on a little weight and becoming a tight end that can, be out there for, 4 downs and not just a couple downs for, passing and stuff, but becoming a 4-down tight end is the biggest thing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, Mitch. Obviously, you coming out of university, you weren't obviously one of the highly touted tight ends, but how would you describe yourself for those that don't know you or don't know what to expect from you? Or do you believe that you'll be able to contribute offensively as well as perhaps blocking in the running game, et cetera?
Oh, definitely. My strength has always been, in the pass game, speed tight end. Always kind of undersized, played college, low 240s, which really isn't too big of a tight end. And, now I'm up to, low 250s and hopefully get up to upper 250s, which, in the NFL, you kind of need that weight to, move some people. And, it really helps in your blocking because you can't really block too well at 240 pounds, but, 255, 260 pounds, it makes it a whole lot easier. So, if I can put on a few pounds, and, I really expect to, do some good things in the blocking game.
Who throws a harder football, A-Rod, Peyton, or Brock Osweiler?
There's no doubt Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, really?
It was honestly, it was really hard when I got to Denver because I was so used to catching, fastballs from Aaron. And, getting to Denver, even from Brock and Peyton, it was like almost I was just like waiting on the ball. But it's a huge difference.
Now, I wanted to ask you about the other guy. I know you're a Packer guy. You're excited for the Packer season, but because you had that experience with Denver, of course, the quarterbacks, both quarterbacks move on from the Broncos. But the third guy intrigues me, Trevor Siemian. And as a guy that you're like yourself who maybe spent some time practicing with someone like him, what was your experience with him, and what did you see from him? And do you think he's got some potential that maybe people aren't talking about?
Yeah, I think he definitely has potential. He was always out there after practice working, an hour after practice just throwing and, a lot of extra work. And, he definitely has a great work ethic. And, he's actually a pretty athletic kid. He can run well. He definitely wasn't the Brock or Peyton type. He wasn't, 6'6", 6'7". He's a shorter guy. But I think he definitely has potential. Biggest thing, when he gets to this level is just learning offense and, knowing what to do. And, with his work ethic, he can definitely, be in the hunt next year.
We're chatting with Mitch Henry of the Green Bay Packers tight end, looking to make a mark this season in his second season in the NFL. Looking at the NFL in the off season, a lot of obviously free agents have moved around. Have you liked what they've done so far in Green Bay? Or are you looking forward to seeing what they do in the draft as well?
It's whatever. It's all up to them. You never know what's going to happen in free agency and, the draft. You never know, who they're going to draft or what. But, whatever they do, tight end wise, if it's free agent draft, expect them to, draft a tight end or pick one up to free agency, because we're kind of low on numbers. But, whatever they do, it's, their decision and, we'll go from there. But, I can only control what I do.
In terms of Aaron Rodgers, what's it been like interacting with him? Do you remember kind of the first time meeting him, or any kind of anecdotes or thoughts about that?
Definitely the first time meeting him, it was pretty surreal. Just walking in the locker room and there's Aaron Rodgers, and walking in the locker room and there's Peyton Manning, within a week span. And it was definitely surreal, but, after a while you got used to it, and, he's just one of the guys. And, Aaron's definitely, he jokes around a lot. He's definitely a fun guy to be around, and he's always, pulling some pranks in the locker room or whatever, but he's he's definitely a great guy to be around.
And then one other quarterback that perhaps you interacted with, I don't know, any chats with John Elway?
I shook his hand, just said, hey, introduced myself and stuff. But that was about it. He didn't really see him too much in Denver. He was kind of a ghost on and off.
Mitch Henry joining us here on TSN 690's Game Points. He's tight end for the Packers. Before we let you go, curious now, as an NFLer, do you play fantasy football? How does that work?
No, I've actually never played fantasy football. Never even through college or high school or anything.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shocking.
Never got into it.
Mitch, I have your Hilltoppers going 7-5 this season.
That's probably a safe bet considering of how many people they lost. But Coach Braun does a great job down there, and they'll probably surprise some people. And they got some quarterbacks in there in that system that's you don't really have to have the best players in that system. Coach Braun's a good enough coach that he'll find a way to win, and I think they'll pull out about 9 games at least.
Including beating Bama in Bama this year?
I'm not going to put any money on that one.
Of course, Mitch went to Western Kentucky. That's where he played. Mitch, Henry, thank you so much for taking the time today. Enjoy the rest of the offseason, and good luck in April as you get ready to play, of course, in the NFL once again. You can follow Mitch, by the way, Mitch Henry 85 on Twitter. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
There you go. That's Mitch Henry of the Green Bay Packers. 6:45 here on TSN 690. It's Game Points with Matthew Ross. I am Matthew. Of course, Mo Khan, David Trentadue, and Jimmy G.
A-Rod, huh?
A-Rod, yeah.
Throwing the heart of football.
Yeah,
I'm surprised. I thought it'd be Brock throwing the heart of football.
No, come on. Aaron Rodgers, you kidding me? That didn't surprise you, did it?
No, not at all.
No, I wouldn't think so. But just shaking John Elway's hand. That's my sports idol, so I would have loved to have seen John Elway one day. You know, I never played football, but I would have faked it to meet John Elway, that's for sure. It is Game Points here on TSN 690. Still to come tonight. So much more. We're here till 8 o'clock. On the other side, we will talk a little bit about the Major League Baseball games happening next weekend. TSN 690 will bring you the pre- and post-game shows as well as the Blue Jays broadcast. If you don't have a chance to be down and be amongst the other 50,000 plus fans that are expected to fill Olympic Stadium. But guess what? They're getting hosed. They're all getting screwed. Every Montreal baseball fan going to that game is getting screwed. I'll tell you why next.